I'm Revis. Today I am going to talk through a Series 3 tier list that I did on stream. This is what I ended up getting to alongside some response from my viewers, but I had obviously the final say, and I basically ranked them in order of what I think you should spend your free Series 3 grab each month that you get now. I figured I do explain it a little bit at the beginning of the video, but I wanted to also explain now that I had a chance to go back, look through my different rankings. So I'm just going to quickly explain that. So first we have the easy grab tier. If you see this in the shop, you can pretty much just grab it. Like, you're never going to be unhappy with any of the cards up here. They fit into a variety of decks. They are oftentimes superstar in that deck in case of Wave, She-Hulk, Doctor Doom, Mystique, fit into a variety of different deck archetypes as finishers or enablers. Magneto does a similar thing. Titania's the best one drop in the game, outside of maybe Kitty Pryde when she gets re-enabled. And yeah, these are just pretty much insta-cops. You're never going to be unhappy. They're not narrow, they're wide in their deck ranges. So I would grab them right away. Next, the tier below that, we have deck defining. These are cards that are the best card in their deck oftentimes, and you can't really play the deck without them. So in the case of some cards, they are a little bit narrower, right? Cerebro, you can only play in Cerebro decks. Same with Patriot, Mr. Negative, Hela. Some of the cards are a little bit wider, such as Dracula, which sees play in Dracula Zero, and Discard and Electro, which sees play in like Ramp, Galactus, and similar decks. But yeah, so these are deck defining but narrow. Still a good grab if you want to play the deck, but you can be unhappy if you don't like that deck's playstyle. And in some cases, the deck can be weak, as Hela and Mr. Negative and Cerebro. The tier below that, we have strong support. These are cards that fall into one of two categories. One, they're the best card in combination with deck defining cards, either in Series 3, so like Wasp and Lockjaw, and Zero with like the Shuri stuff, or Titania, just in any deck, or they're just strong overall cards that can fit in many different decks, like Polaris and Daredevil. Those are still good with pool 1, 2 cards. And then so these are good to grab if you have the cards that make up the strong decks. Like, so if you already have the deck defining cards, so if you already have your Patriot, you probably want your Wasp and Mysterio. If you have your Lockjaw, you want your Wasp. If you have the balance synergy like Hitmonkey, you want Beast. Okay, and then the tier below that, we have more mediocre cards. Not necessarily always mediocre. They can often shine in different decks, but maybe the decks they support are mediocre. For example, sometimes different metagames can make these cards shine, but oftentimes these are not the most important cards in their deck, or they're like the second or third most important, but they only fit into one deck. So for example, Red Skull goes into Shuri. It's a really good card in Shuri, but it doesn't really support any other deck archetype. Shuri is what makes that deck shine, right? And then on the other hand, we have Thor. Thor is really nice in Lockjaw, but it's also just a solid standalone card. Definitely not required to make Lockjaw work. So yeah, that's what kind of that tier is for. The tier below that, we have what I'm calling weak cards. They're not necessarily weak as a card, but perhaps like their supportive deck archetype is pretty weak, or they just don't really shine. They're easily counterable, right? So your Zola is like super easily countered. Your Falcon, not really necessary to play balance. Like Beast is really what makes that work. And then you have like these cards are not good. Magic is pretty awful, but it can shine. So they have the fun factor potentially. You're not actively hurting your deck by playing Maria Hill, for example. Like, you get a card from it. Like, sure, it's a worse Sentinel, but you're not actively hurting yourself with that card. And then the tier below that, we have what I call Avoid. If you're including these cards in your deck, I don't know what you're doing. These actively make your deck worse. There's no upside to playing a 4/5 Miles Morales besides the fact that you might put in bad move cards into your deck. Baron Mordo draws your opponent a card. Agatha is Agatha. So, in my opinion, you should only be getting cards from your Series 3 shop from strong support and higher. Obviously, easy grab are like the best, and then depending on what cards you open, like then you can decide whether you want to do deck defining or strong support. And if you have all of those, then you can start looking into the mediocre support area. And you should only be getting weak cards if you already have like everything above, right? So if you're deciding between weak and avoid cards, you should get a weak card over that. But yeah, otherwise, I'll let you guys go into the video. I explain my rankings for the different cards, and then you can see why I chose to put these in different places. I will note 2 changes I made from the video. I brought up Maria Hill and Drax from Avoid to weak because Drax does have an upside, it's 4/5 with an upside, and same with Maria Hill. So you're not actively hurting yourself with those in your deck. So that's why I brought them up. I will make a quick note for the cards dropping this month. So the cards dropping this month are Shuri, Super Skrull, Bass, Black Panther, and Valkyrie. So right now, I think Shuri is an easy grab, but she's getting nerfed. So I would wait until the patch. Otherwise, Bast is deck defining, as is, and Valkyrie falls under strong support, assuming they see no changes in this upcoming patch. And lastly, Black Panther would fall under weak, and Super Skrull is also weak because it does win like 1 out of like 50 games, so it's not actively bad most of the time, depending on the deck you put it in. It borderlines weak and avoid. But yeah, so those are for if you're wondering about the cards dropping. That's where I put them right now, in their current states. But otherwise, I'll let you go see my reasoning for all the other current Series 3 cards, and feel free to ask me in the comments what I think, if you want me to elaborate more on any cards. I'll also include just a download of this tier list in the description, so you can go just have it on hand if you're ever deciding like what Series 3 cards to get from the shop and you just want to quickly see the whole list without having to go through the video. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time. You guys want to just like rank them? So how I'm going to do this ranking, so I'll explain each category, yeah? So we're going to rank all the Series 3 cards based on what I think you should get from your Series shop. So the top one, it's easy grab. It's something that I think fits into multiple different deck archetypes. It's a really strong card. You pretty much can't go wrong with buying it. So getting it for free. Below that is deck defining. These are cards that make up an entire deck archetype. They can sometimes fit into multiple decks, but generally they're like just the standalone, like makes this deck, right? An example of a non-Series 3 card that does this is Galactus, right? There's really only one Galactus deck archetype. It just makes that. Series 3 card that is defined by this is negative. Below that is strong support cards. These are cards that are really good if you want to build a specific deck. And sometimes they're even required in a specific deck, but they do require other cards to work. YouTube. Maybe we'll see if we put those on the YouTube. It'll require some serious editing. Below that, we have the mediocre support cards, or just mediocre cards in general. These will be cards that are useful in a certain deck archetype, or just useful overall, but very fringe buys unless you're trying to complete a specific deck, right? So if you already have the deck defining and strong support cards for that deck, maybe you can consider buying that. Weak stuff that you don't want to buy. Avoid, like weak. Okay, maybe you buy 1 or 2 if you're like almost Series 3 complete. Avoid, never buy. Stuff that just doesn't go in any deck. It's too weak. So yeah, we're gonna go through one by one, rank them all, and then maybe talk about the overall ranking. But yeah, chat. You can feel free to give me your input. You can get one for free each month, Sinead. So like if you're almost seriously complete, maybe you're trying to decide. Right? You have to wait for it to rotate and stuff. All right, let's go one by one. Adam Warlock. You don't want to ever buy Adam Warlock. It sucks. Yo, thank you for the follow, Quack. It's avoid. You should never buy Adam Warlock. It goes into Galactus sometimes, but that's about it. I prefer Galactus without that. All right, next we have Arrow. Arrow used to be easy to grab. I think now it's down a few tiers, right? You'll see it in wave decks sometimes. I would say it's pretty strong in the wave decks. Maybe, but it could be borderline mediocre outside of that. Like, you don't need it in the wave decks. It's just like strong. Like, yeah, it's kind of mid, yeah. It's definitely not a weak card. It's still a good card, but like it's not a required card in your wave decks. Most people run Doom over it nowadays. Agatha, avoid. Agatha plays your cards for you. She sucks. Yep, yeah, most of my chat agrees with me. We don't have the chat on screen, but all right. Next we have Zola. I think we'll put Zola in weak, right? Zola occasionally seems to play in like the Black Panther combos, the Shuri combos, but the decks always perform better without the Zola. It's high key better than Arrow. I disagree. Maybe it's more surprising nowadays, but I personally would put it in weak. Yeah, it's either 0 or 100. It's very hit or miss. All right, we got Baron Mordo. Definitely an avoid. We actually had a situation on stream today where Baron Mordo pulled my death, which made me win the game very easily. You should never buy that card. Let's see. Then we have Beast. Beast is actually on the up and up here. Beast is required in bounce decks. I would put it in strong support. If you're doing any kind of Hitmonkey bounce stuff, Beast is huge. It's better than like the Falcon stuff, right? Anything. It reduces your cards by 1. It's very good now. It used to not be as good. All right, next we have Black Bolt. I'm going to put Black Bolt in mediocre. Black Bolt is huge with the stature combo, but outside of that, it's not that good. But it's not a bad card. If you have stature, it's good support for stature. So if you somehow luck out on getting stature on the drop when it goes to Series 4 on Tuesday, you should consider getting Black Bolt. Yeah, it requires them 1 card. You should only consider getting it if you open stature as a Series 4 card. I'm putting it there because stature drops on Tuesday. Black Bolt over Arnim Zola? Yeah, for sure. Zola is weaker than Black Bolt? I will say so. Yeah. All right, next we have Black Cat, which is 3-7 now. This is actually not updated. Black Cat's better than the Avoid stuff. You see Black Cat occasionally used in Hella. So I would put it in weak over Avoid. Zola automatically loses you a lane, yeah. Yeah. Don't get Black Bolt outside of the stature stuff. It's Avoid outside of stature. But the fact that stature drops is why I'm putting it there. I'm doing Zola dirty. All right, next we have Black Panther. Black Panther goes to the same tier as Zola. It's pretty much only playable in the negative Zola decks. It's not very good. Like, if you're shuring, you'd rather shuri Red Skull or something else, right? All right. Oh, here's something tougher. Widow. Widow is interesting. It's probably weak. As much as I like Widow, a lot of bounce decks have been cutting Widow. So I think it's a weak card. Like, it's okay, but I'd rather play Hitmonkey over it. I would rather play a lot of cards over it. It's a 2-1. Yeah, that was actually a bit easier than I thought. All right, Brood. Brood definitely mediocre support. Brood sees play in Patriot and Surfer decks, and while they're not top tier, you need to have Brood to play those decks. So if you want to play Surfer and Patriot, Patriot's I guess less required. C2, yep. She's valuable in some Hawk decks. I cut Black Widow in all my Hawk decks. I think Brood is mediocre for sure. Like it's C2 basically. It's support for mediocre decks, yeah. Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel right now sees play in Shuri. But outside of that, she doesn't really see any play. And I think Vision is better. Oh man, this might be mediocre or weak. I don't know. She's very, yeah. I guess, you know what? She also sees play in like some non-Shuri decks that like play kind of lane control stuff. And she's pretty mediocre there. Definitely not needed. She's also in Hela, yep. So very reasonable buy. If you want to play those decks, I probably wouldn't buy her from the fact that she's very mid, but she's definitely not weak. She's not the same level as any of the cards in weak. All right, Cerebro. Here's something interesting. So Cerebro goes into deck defining purely because if you want to play any Cerebro deck, you kind of need Cerebro. So if you want to play Cerebro, you should buy Cerebro, right? There's no other card you can buy to play the Cerebro deck. Yeah. It's not very good deck right now with Red Skull and Thanos being popular, but like you can still play it. And if you want to play it, you have to have Cerebro in the deck. All right, Colleen. All right, this might be a hot take, but Colleen's definitely strong support. It's one of the best cards in your discard deck. Yeah, but it's only usable in discard. So if you want to play discard, consider Colleen Wing. Obviously, MODOK you need first, but yeah, that's fair, Scott. You do need Mystique. All right, Crossbones. I didn't even know this was a Series 3 card. It's a void. There's no deck that runs Crossbones right now outside of the Agatha good cards list, which is awful. So Agatha's in a void, Crossbones is too. All right, we got some easy ones coming up. Crystal sees the least amount of play in the game. She's actually the worst like card in the game. I think right behind like Magic. Don't buy her no matter what. All right, we have Dagger. Dagger is weak. Dagger is good in Move. She's a 2/2 now, but Move is a bad archetype. Dan, yeah, my chat's going off about how I have Dan Hip Crystal. Yeah. Agatha is deck defining. No, if it's an actively bad deck that it defines, it goes into a void. You don't think you've heard of Crystal, yeah. But yeah, Dagger is usable in the Move decks. Maybe one day she'll be strong support. But until Move becomes viable, it's weak support. The deck is too weak. All right, we have Daredevil. Daredevil is a good card. It doesn't define its own deck, but in the decks Daredevil is in, it's like one of the strongest cards, right? With your Prophex, with your Spider-Man decks. Very, very good card. Very fun card to play with. But like it doesn't make up its own deck. So, and you don't really need it 100% of the time. This is Series 3, so we're not going to talk about Galactus. Yeah. But I think Galactus is a bit stronger than like Agatha. All right, next we have Deadpool, which we're also going to put in a void. It's an awful card. I would never play Deadpool in the deck. And neither should you. All right. So next we have Death, right? You might think like, oh, Death Wave, probably deck defining, right? Like very easy, like Death Wave stuff. I think Death is an easy grab. How do you watch this video faster? When I stitch it together, what do you mean? I'll probably re-record once I make the tier list. But right now we're locked out of the game, so until then I need to stall. Yeah. Right now, Def sees play in Def Wave. It sees play in just Wave decks. It sees play like in Thanos. It's too good. It's an easy grab, I think. Like if you use your free series card on this, you're not gonna regret it. As much as like it is wave reliant, it's still just too good. Locked out, streamer must be cheating. All right, next we have Debris. Debris goes mediocre. Debris is really solid in Clog, really solid in Patriot. It's a solid card, but both of those decks are kind of weak. And the best Patriot deck I don't think runs Debris, or at least Debris is not the best card in the deck, so it's probably mediocre support. Yeah, it's anti-Galactus. It's a reasonable card. But yeah, like anything, like I don't think you should spend your free Series 3 on anything above strong support and up. So I still wouldn't buy her, but yeah, Bastria does run her. Alright. Next we have Destroyer. Destroyer, 616. Back when it was a 616, it was definitely deck defining. Very good card. Unfortunately now it goes in the weak. It's definitely fallen off the wayside. It's just not big enough to contest anything anymore. The decks that used to want Destroyer are not good. There is an exception for maybe the Ocean Mud Atuma deck. Oh, actually, you know what? There's Ocean Mud Atuma deck that runs this. I'll bring it up to mediocre support. I think with Shuri being nerfed as well, this will slowly go up. So I'm okay with putting this mediocre. No, the change in the meta made it much weaker, for sure. Not necessarily the nerf for 1 power. I mean, that definitely didn't help either, but it will see some like reasonable play, like more than any of the cards in week. So, all right, we have Doctor Doom next. Yeah, people are already saying Doctor Doom. I think right now is an easy grab. It goes into Sandman Electro. It goes into Lockjaw decks. It goes into Wave She-Hulk decks. If you're not playing Doctor Doom is probably one of the best 6-drops right now, if not the best. You can just put it in a controlled list, and it's good. You can put it into Sarah, and it's good. All right, we have Doc Ock, my favorite card in Marvel Snap. Unfortunately, you should not spend tokens or free buys on Doc Ock. It's kind of bad. I can tell you after playing lots of Doc Ock, the amount of times you get Shang-Chi'd, auto lose the lane, it's awful. No, it's really bad. Okay, next we have Dracula. Dracula goes into strong support or deck defining. Isn't it using Galactus? Oh, it is using Galactus. All right, you're right. Because of Galactus, Doc Ock goes to weak. Yeah, I think Dracula is deck defining. Yeah. Purely because of Galactus. If you have Galactus, you can consider getting Doc Ock. But it's not the most important card in Galactus, so I'd still put it under weak. It is very good. But yeah, okay. Dracula deck defining. It's really good. So not only in discard, it's also deck defining in the Infinite Destroyer Zoo, which is another reason Destroyer actually I think should be mediocre. That's a good deck. The 1 cost just flood like the Zoo Destroyer Dracula deck. Very good. So it goes in a couple decks. It's like defining for both of those. Yeah, you must run it in discard and Zoo Dracula. All right, next we have Drax. Drax saw some mediocre play in the Zabu metagame, but since then it's not been in a single deck. So I would not buy that. All right, here's an interesting one. Electro. To me, Electro goes in one of these two. I think it goes in deck defining. Any deck that runs Electro, it's the best card in that deck, right? So Sandman, Galactus, any kind of Electro deck. Those are probably the 2 main ones, but you can't play those decks without Electro. So Yeah, definitely not easy grab, but you need it in both those decks. All right, next we have Falcon. Falcon's interesting because Falcon's really good in bounce, but Beast is better. So I might put it in mediocre or weak. Yeah, lots of people are saying weak. Weak, yeah. Like if I cut Falcon from bounce, I wouldn't be too sad. But it could be like Debris Black Bolt tier, right? I don't know. It's very at the edge to me. Maybe top of weak. Oh yeah, we should put this over like Black Cat for sure. And this over. Black Bolt should be towards the bottom. Yeah, that seems better. Yeah, top of week, I think. Or Panther, yeah. Maybe like this. Daredevil should be higher than Colleen. And Doctor Doom over Death. Yeah, I'll try and organize them as in like what the worst possible things you can do is. These are all bad. There's no point of organizing this. All right, Gambit. Gambit sees minimal play in discard. I think it's still bad in discard. So definitely weak. Yeah. All right. There's like nothing to say about Gambit. You're going to hit the armor lane or a bad card 99% of the time. Except for that one guy on Reddit who claims that he's lost every game to Gambit because it's hit the best card every time. If you're that one guy, if you play that one guy every game, then you should get Gambit. All right, next we have Ghost Rider. I think Ghost Rider is weak tier. Even in Hella, I've been cutting Ghost Rider. It sees play in some of the Hella Carrier Dino decks, I guess, but those are bad. So I think weak. Like I said, you don't want to buy anything that's really weak or below. Like definitely don't buy even weak cards, really. Mediocre, if you have everything above, you can get. It's good when Zabu is OP, yeah. All right, next we have Giganto. Giganto sees play in Lockjaw, but even there, I don't think it's like even close to the most important card. So I think this goes in weak. Like I wouldn't spend tokens on getting Giganto or my free Series 3 on Giganto. That seems bad. All right, next we have Goose. Goose is a card that's been seeing more and more play, and then, but like I never feel bad when I don't have Goose in a deck. So I think this also goes in weak. Like the only deck that really loves Goose is Cerebro. This probably might go above Zola though. Yeah, no, Goose is okay. It's a very heavy tech card. I can't put a tech card in mediocre. It's good in some cases. But yeah, it's good to stop Galactus, to stop Red Skull, but you auto lose to the She-Hulk then, so, and Shuri. So it's very much on the edge. Yeah, I ranked it in Sarah, but it's it didn't perform all that well. I think I would put it under weak. All right, we got Goblin. Goblin is really nice in the Clog style decks, the Titania decks. I think it's the same level as Debris. Very solid, right? You usually run those two together. And those are good decks. It's even solid in the double up She-Hulk deck with Titania. Very solid. Do they have Titania and She-Hulk here? Oh, no, they don't, right? All right, I'll have to like mention those at the end. Yeah, this is not all updated. I should have double checked that first. I'll like edit it in. All right, then we have Hazmat. Hazmat is weak. Hazmat goes with Luke Cage Hazmat decks, but those are really bad. So, yo, good night, Rio. All right, then we have. Okay, Hella is deck defining, but it's. Don't get it. You need her in Hella decks, but I would not personally spend tokens. But if you want to play Hella, I guess you have to get her, right? Hellcow, it's a worse Modoc now. I would put it under weak. Like, you don't play this in Hella, you don't play this in discard. It's, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Like, it's an okay card, but like, you don't really play it in anything. Human Torch, this is a void. I think even in the move decks, it's kind of bad. It dies to Killmonger, not a good card. Then we got Invisible Woman. Oh, and my headphones disconnected. Invisible Woman is interesting. I would put it under weak. It comes up here and there. Black Panther, yeah. Black Panther drops this month. We can talk about this month's drops too. But let's talk about that after, yeah. Okay. Next we have Jane. Jane is reasonable in Thor decks, but definitely not the best card in that deck. I would put it around here in mediocre support. It's okay. It's an okay card in an okay deck. So mid, yeah. Like, you don't need it to play Lockjaw decks. It's nice to have. Juggernaut. Juggernaut's pretty solid, but it doesn't really define a deck in any way. It just kind of fits into a lot of different decks. It fits into Clog. It fits into it's pretty nice in Surfer. So I would definitely consider getting it, maybe if it was one of the last cards here. Poor Arrow, yeah. Arrow should be more like here, actually. It's like a better Arrow. Yeah, it's just nice in Sarah, yeah. Killmonger's not Series 3, right? That's Series 2. This list is a little bit outdated. So yeah, we're not going to rate that because it's not in the right series. Kingpin, weak. It's pretty bad. You can try and build around it, but you might get some fun destroys sometimes, but it's not very good. Avoid? I wouldn't avoid Kingpin completely. Like, it's not at the same level. Kingpin doesn't actively lose you games, right? Kingpin's a 3/4. This card I would avoid. Leader, when Leader was a 6/4 of his ability, he would go an easy grab. Leader now is terrible. Yeah. You can maybe make it work in an Electro deck with Daredevil, but you'd rather just want to run a good 6-drop. Alright, Lockjaw, deck defining for sure. This makes up a lot of good decks in the metagame. Thanos, it makes up the Jane Foster Lockjaw decks. There's even like a Surfer Lockjaw deck that I think is pretty decent. Easy grab? I don't think so. It's an easy grab if you have Thanos. But outside of that, I wouldn't grab it. Right. Maybe it's borderline. Maybe top of here, right? Yeah. Move Cerebro down. Yeah, maybe it's something like this, right? Maybe top of deck defining. Like, Lockjaw makes some of the best decks. Magic. I think Magic is weak. I don't think it's a void. Magic is one of the worst win rate cards in the game. But, like, in negative, it's kind of okay. Like, it's not actively losing you a lot of games. It does actively lose you some games, but not all the time. Alright, Magneto. Magneto, easy grab for sure. Well, it's like Doctor Doom, it's one of the best 6-drops. You're never sad to have Magneto. Like, it's just so good. I cut Magneto from some of my decks over the past couple weeks. This past week, I've been running Magneto everywhere that I can, basically, and it's been so good to pull like Darkhawks, to pull Cosmos, to just like make the board uneven. It's hard to play around Magneto and like just general big cards. How's it easy? Well, it's easy grab like if you see it in your Series 3 shop, Senpai. Like if you see these cards in your Series 3 shop, it's pretty much like auto buy, I think. Maximus, I think it's Maximus was really strong for a while in like Surfer and Sarah. I think people mostly have been replacing with Polaris in a lot of decks. Everyone has their shop, yeah. But it's been replaced a lot, so it's very much mid, probably all the way down here. Yeah, it depends on the meta, but right now it's mid. I think even when it's good, it goes top of mediocre. I don't think it ever goes into strong. All right, now we got Miles. Miles is a void. Miles is bad even in move decks. So I would not get him ever. Black Bolt is high because stature exists. Yeah, if Miles is like stature, it would probably go to weak or even mediocre. All right, Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative is deck defining. Honestly, I think Mr. Negative, though, in the current metagame, is worse than Hella. Negative is really bad, in a bad spot right now. There's too much leech, there's too much wave. You're going to lose if you play this deck. But if you want to play the deck, you have to have Mr. Negative. And it's a fun deck, honestly. So. But yeah, part of the reason is Magic is awful. And you kind of want Magic to beat the wave stuff. Alright, Mojo. I have a soft spot for Mojo, but I still think it's pretty weak. Probably like mid-week. With all the Hitmonkey Mysterio stuff, I think it's on the uprise, low-key. People don't expect the Mojo. But it's still not something that you should buy in the shop. So. Or not buy, but like get for free in the shop. Alright, next we have Moon Knight. Moon Knight doesn't even see play. Moon Knight sees some play and destroy and discard, and it will see more play of stature. So I think it will go weak. Like, it's better than some of the weak cards. It's better than Hell Cow. But it's not very good. like a lot of the discard stuff. Like in discard, the only cards you really want are Colleen, Sif, and MODOK. Moon Knight is better stature than Black Bolt. I haven't played, so I don't know. I would rather run Black Bolt in my stature deck, but maybe that's just me. Moon Knight discards stature a lot. I don't know. Alright, Mysterio. Mysterio. Strong support. It's almost deck defining, I think. It's like the best card in Bounce, in Sarah. But I guess outside of that, it's not really, doesn't really do much. So it's borderline, I think. I struggle to put it as deck defining because for it to be really good, you do need the Bast, right? You can't make a deck. You do need the Sarah. You can't really make a deck just with Mysterio. You need the Patriot, yeah. Like, just having Mysterio isn't enough to make a deck. You kind of need at least that one support card. Mystique, easy grab. Probably one of the best cards you can grab. It fits into so many different deck types, archetypes. You need it for Cerebro. You want it for dinosaur decks. You want it for negative decks. You want it in every deck. It's so good. Yeah, you want it for Iron Man, Hawk. Like, it's so good. Mystique is pretty solid. Yeah, I still don't think Brood is strong enough to put in strong support. Cerebro's not a strong enough archetype for me to recommend people to buy Brood. Okay, Nick Fury, avoid. It's awful. I would be pretty sad if I got Nick Fury. Nick Fury was my first Series 3 card, and I barely, like, whenever I put him into deck, I lost. So, I took him out pretty quickly. Omega Red, I think Omega Red is weak. Omega Red is a 4/5. I struggle to put a 4/5 in a Void. It doesn't actively lose you the game, right? In a Void, most of these cards, if you run, besides maybe Drax, actively like loses you the game. Yeah. Drax and Chris, like Drax could probably go above. Shuri Omega Red is slept on. All right, Patriot, deck defining. Patriot, very solid place right now. Lots of Patriot decks are like standing up to Shuri post nerfs, and it will only get better with like the series drops of Bast and Valkyrie, both very strong in your Patriot deck. How can Miles be avoided but Omega not? Oh, because Omega has a positive effect, right? Miles, if you put in a deck, you're making your move deck worse with Miles. If you put Omega Red in an ongoing deck, you're not making the ongoing deck worse. I don't think Arrow belongs to strong support. No, definitely not. Arrow's kind of on the down low right now. Arrow's okay in wave decks, but outside of that, it's not very good. Polaris is a card that's been replacing Max in a lot of decks. I think it's very strong. You're never sad to play Polaris in your deck. It's very good in Sarah. It's very good in Shuri. It's very good in Clog. I think it's a cracked card. People were really down on Polaris, I think for a similar reason to why Arrow was bad in the beta. Like, Polaris might honestly need to be nerfed. It's very good. Like, it should probably be a 3-4. But don't tell anybody this. Like, it's better than a lot of cards. It's probably one of the best 3-drops, if not the best. Like, standalone. Right? Obviously, Mystique's better. Psylocke? What do you guys think about Psylocke? I feel like it could go into strong support, but it could also go into mediocre. Top of mediocre. Yeah, top of mediocre. Like, Psylocke is a huge enabler for a lot of decks. Maybe like mid. Probably worse than Brood, right? And Arrow. You need it in negative. You need it in Galactus. It's okay in Thanos, but most of Thanos has replaced it with Wasp. Alright, then we have Quake. I think Quake is weak. People have made it to Infinite with Quake-themed decks. Those decks kind of suck, I think. But you're not actively losing the game if you play Quake. So, it's a 2-3. I wouldn't put it in a Void. Like, you're not losing the game with a Quake, usually. Quake can win you the game, yeah. I played that Quake deck. It was pretty good. But, like, for a Quake deck. It also ran Shuri, so. Alright, next we have Quinjet. Quinjet used to be, I would say, strong support. I think now it's pretty mid. It will see a lot of play in any deck that runs Moon Girl or Coulson. Like, it's really good in those decks. But outside of that, it's not very good. Like, if you want to play the Moon Girl Dino Hawk list, you need Quinjet. If you want to play Moon Girl She-Hulk, you want Quinjet. But outside of that, you don't really want it. Red Skull used to be strong support. I think now it's mediocre. Red Skull now is not a 515, it's a 512. Definitely a lot weaker. It's only playable in Shuri now, I think. Like, people cut it in the Dracula deck for Destroyer and Infinite. So, yeah, it's like high mid. Probably a little better than Arrow, but very, very mid. Like, I would buy it if you want to play a Shuri deck, but that's it. All right, we have Rescue. Rescue, I think, falls pretty low and like in the weak area. Honestly, the issue with Rescue is that it goes to 9. It's super shank treatable. It will pop up every once in a while in Sarah, though, but I definitely would not get it. Yeah, I agree. The Quinjet nerf was justified for sure. All right, next we have Rockslide. Rockslide's really good in Darkhawk with Zabu. But outside of that, it's kind of mid. I think it follows a similar line to Brood, where it's like required in those decks, right? Like your Surfer, your Patriot, your Subaru. But outside of that, you don't really want to run Rockslide. Yeah, just Hawk. Okay, it's probably a little bit lower. Probably Black Bolt or max level. Yeah, you're right. It's a good stat line, though. 4-6 is nice. All right, next we have Rogue. I love Rogue as a card. I used to play a ton of Rogue in the Surfer metagame, but it's really fallen on the wayside now. It's like a tech card, kind of like Goose. When it's good, it's really good. Otherwise, it's bad. So I think it's weak. It's very similar to Goose. Ronan. I think Ronan goes up to weak now. Ronan used to, I think, be a void, but now Master Mold exists. If you have Master Mold, you can consider getting Ronan. Outside of that, I wouldn't get it. So the bottom of weak, I think. Like, there's an archetype of Ronan now. So, maybe even up to Black Panther level. Like, it's reasonable in that archetype. But it's not deck defining. What deck defines that archetype is Master Mold. But if you're looking to get a Series 3 card, you probably don't have Master Mold, yeah? Yeah, that's why I'm putting it in weak. Hazmat is least support? No. Hazmat is awful. The Sarah Toxic deck is not good. Alright, next we have Sandman. Sandman's a 5/5 now. I think Sandman is strong support. Sandman is in a really good spot right now in this metagame, and it's only going to go up with the Shuri nerfs. It doesn't define its deck. Funnily enough, the Sandman decks don't really care too much about the Sandman. They care about the Electro. Yeah, they're an Electro deck with Sandman. So that's why it's not deck defining. But it is a very solid card there with Bounce being so popular. No, it's not deck defining because what defines the deck is Electro. All right, next we have Sarah. Sarah, I think Sarah is not an easy grab, unfortunately. In this metagame, like, I think it's just deck defining. It goes into one deck, which is the Sarah deck. And I don't even think it's the best card in the Sarah deck. Yeah, it's deck defining. Recently, yeah, we've ran a Sarah deck to Infinite. A lot of times, I think Sarah is a bait, especially for new players, where you don't always want a Sarah on 5. Isn't the Sarah deck tier 1? Yeah. But Sarah, it goes into one deck, which is the Sarah deck, right? So I can't put it in an easy grab. There's one Sarah deck. Look, all of the ones that go in deck defining, except maybe Lockjaw and Dracula. Like, define one deck, right? Yeah, maybe only Dodger. I mean, I think Mystique is still good enough. Like, okay, yeah, I guess I shouldn't just talk about this meta, but like in any meta, there's only one Sarah deck. Do you make many different Sarah decks? But do you need Sarah for those decks? I don't think so. Even Surfer doesn't run Sarah anymore. I'd rather play a Surfer deck without Sarah. Alright, this is my tier list, by the way. So, Pool 3 incompletes, yeah. So it's deck defining. Like, it's top of deck defining. Did I not put it top of deck defining? I'll put it top of deck defining. Maybe depth should go down. Yeah. Because this is for Pool 3. I feel like I should move Death down. Death needs Wave to be good. We're going to move Death down. So the reason I'm moving Death down is because you're kind of unhappy to pull Death without Wave. Or Galactus. Yeah. I would not get Sarah before Mag, but that's a personal preference for sure. Yeah, we'll pull Death down. All right, we got Spider-Man next. Spider-Man has been seeing a lot more play recently. I think it's a very solid tech card. It borderlines mid and weak depending on the metagame. If you're a Pool 3 player, I don't think you should be picking up Spider-Man. So probably bottom of mediocre. Sarah's way more flexible. Yeah, that's why we brought Sarah down. Or why we brought Death down. Because, yeah, if you're Pool 3, you can't get Death without Wave. Alright. Next we have Taskmaster. Taskmaster is very limited in uses, but it's very solid in those limitations. So I think it would go under mediocre in that case. Probably somewhere around the arrow tier. Shuri does drop to pool 3. So you need Taskmaster if you want to play Shuri. So I think mediocre is a good spot. But Shuri's going to be nerfed, so the deck's going to be a lot worse. Next we got Hood. What do you guys think about Hood? I'm curious. I'm going to tell you guys what my chat thinks. Insta-buy? I'm going to put Hood in mediocre. And I'm going to tell you why. Top of mediocre. I don't like Hood in most of my decks. Yeah, strong support, but okay. We're getting actually some interesting takes here. Hood is okay in a lot of decks. Hood been cut out of Death Wave a lot, which tells me a lot about Hood's value. So, like, it's mediocre. I would not recommend buying Hood. I cut Hood from my Shield double up deck for that reason too. I've cut Hood from my bounce deck. Like, it's reasonable in those decks, but I'd rather play a lot of other cards. I don't have a fun factor. I'm being honest to my peoples. If you're being honest, it's top of mediocre. It's okay. It's an okay card. It's fun to play. Yeah, it's fun to play. Yeah, Quinjet nerf hit it a lot. I think putting it top of mediocre is very reasonable. All right, next we have Thor. As fun as Thor Lockjaw is, it definitely doesn't define the deck. I think it goes somewhere in mediocre. Yeah, Hood's a 2/4 that takes up 2 slots, which kind of sucks. A weak. Oh, lots of people saying weak. Thor has to be better than Maximus, right? Lots of people have been putting Thor in a max deck. I think it's mediocre. It's a reasonable card. I wouldn't recommend buying it, just like I wouldn't recommend buying anything below strong support, like from the free shop. But no, you run Thor without Jane for sure. It's okay. It's an okay card. Yeah, you have to respect the hammer from Thor. It sees play in good cards list all the time. All right, next we have Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary, I think, falls under weak. Even nowadays in good cards lists, you see Thor. It's okay in some 0 decks. It's reasonable in Sauron. But I would not buy her ever. You need cards to make Thor work? No, you don't. You can just play a Thor in the deck and it's good. Yes, it's good in Sauron. That's about it. Colleen is above Hood because Colleen is better than Hood. You actually need Colleen for discard. You don't need Hood in any deck that has Hood. Outside maybe Claw Viper decks, which are not that good. All right, Ultron. What do you guys think about Ultron? Are we big Ultron believers or big haters? I think Ultron varies from strong to mediocre. I think we have to put it in mediocre though. Like, it's not really deck defining in the deck that it's in. Probably like down here though. It's good in the guys. They run it in the Gunny Patriot. It's very solid. It's a solid card, but I wouldn't buy it. So, right, if you're in pool 3 and you have Patriot and Mystique, you should consider getting Ultron. But that's like multiple cards, right, that you need. So Patriot's better without Ultron, yeah. So that's why Ultron's mediocre. No. I'm Patriot is good, but Patriot might be better without Ultron. So, and like, you don't need Ultron to run Patriot, right? I would rather probably run like a Mysterio Brood version than an Ultron version. A lot of the time. Yeah. I think it's still better than Debris as a standalone. All right, we have Venom. Venom goes into Void. Venom is not good in Destroy. It's a pretty bad card. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It's like the same tier as Deadpool, right? I would never buy Venom. Similarly, Viper is not Void. Viper sees some play in Clog decks, Probably similar to Black Widow power level. It's okay. It's pretty weak. You should not get Viper ever. Not better than the pool, yeah. It's like the same level though. Yeah, I don't know why Symbiote is on here. All right, Wasp. How do we feel about Wasp here? Wasp is on the up and up, I feel like. Wasp I'm going to put in mediocre support. You want Wasp in your Lockjaw deck. Strong. Oh, Patriot. Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Wasp is nuts in Patriot. I was not even considering the Patriot. Yeah, Wasp you run in your Lockjaw decks. Wasp you run in your Patriot decks. It's like the best card in Lockjaw. It's one of the best cards in Patriot. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't put it on the same level as Hood. It's also like one of the best cards in Thanos. Yeah, you're right. People run it in Hitmonkey. Yeah. For some reason, I was only thinking Lockjaw. But yeah, she gets things done. Like, you're really happy if you get Wasp. So, and you have like any of the support, like Patriot, Lockjaw. All right. Wave. How are we feeling about Wave? I'm going to put Wave in easy grab. In my opinion, Wave is likely one of the best, if not the best card in Marvel Snap. It makes up so many deck archetypes. It makes up your Def decks. It makes up your Wave Doom decks. It makes up your She-Hulk decks. It makes up your Sandman decks. I would get Wave. It synergizes with everything. It makes up Galactus, yeah. You're never sad about getting Wave. Like, if you buy Wave, you're gonna never be sad about that. Like, it's an easy grab. I feel like I don't even explain that much. All right, Wong. Yeah, Wave is, that's what I say. I think Wave's the best card in the game currently. It gets even stronger with Kitty Pryde. Wong goes under weak. I was thinking about putting it in a void. But I think Wong has the fun factor, but it's also ridiculously easy to counter. No one likes to play Wong in their deck. That like no one climbs with Wong. Like, you're always gonna lose. Right? If people have a counter to Wong, they're gonna snap you and you're gonna lose cubes. If they don't, they're just gonna leave. So definitely a very low cube rate, but it has some fun aspect. So similar to Magic tier. You shouldn't, yeah. Wong is a card that you want until you get it. I agree with Senpai. He's very bad. All right, next we have Yellow Jacket. I think I'm gonna put Yellow Jacket in the void. It sees play in like Galactus, but I think the Galactus decks with Yellow Jacket are bad. It's like Adam Warlock tier, right? They see play together. So Zero, a much more interesting card. Zero, I think, goes into mediocre support. Right? It sees play with the Zero Red Skull decks. It sees play with Atuma. It sees play with the Titania combo. It's very strong. You can't really be sad about having Zero. Zero's deck defining? I doubt that. Zero could be strong support sometimes. Definitely not deck defining. Let's put it at the top of mediocre. Let's put Hood down a bit. I think it's top of mediocre, maybe bottom of strong. I'm trying to see how the split is. Like, I would not really recommend people to get Zero. Their deck's called the Zero archetype, but Zero's not a key card in that deck. Zero under Colleen Wing. All right. We're going to have to go find the new Series 3 cards in a second. All right, chat's being pretty convincing. It does see play in the Zoo deck. All right. We'll bring it up to strong support. It might be a better card than I'm giving it credit for. It is run in a lot of good decks. Sandman's Pool 2. Oh. Wait, Sandman's Pool 2. Let me take it off the list. Yeah, you're right. Sandman is Pool 2. I don't know why it's here. Thank you guys. I was asking earlier, I wasn't sure, and no one said anything. Yeah, Zero's okay. Zero's good with Titania. Like, it's nuts with Titania. So I'm willing to bring it up to strong support. Like, that combo can go in so many different decks. All right, let's go find the new Series 3 cards, yeah? Be sad to ever get... Like, She-Hulk is an easy pickup, always. Like, since She-Hulk came out, it was an easy pickup. Yeah, you should not be unhappy about getting She-Hulk ever. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay, let's do Absman. Absman saw some play in the Zabu meta. I think it's in a really bad spot right now. I'd put it under weak. You shouldn't get Absman. Like, it's a tech card at best. Like, no deck plays Absman right now that I can think of. Like, some meme decks play Absman. Absorbing Man. Yeah, I know, Garrick. I got you. But yeah, thank you. So I don't miss any. All right, let's do Coulson next. Coulson, I think, would go in strong support. Coulson's really nice card. You play it in Dino. You play it in any card that wants to fill your hand. It's one of the best cards you can play in that deck. It's really nice with Quinjet. If you have Quinjet, Coulson is so good. It's a really good card. I think people underestimated it when he first came out, and lots of people said he was weak, but he actually turned out being really good. And I think he deserves this respect. All right, I think most of them are at the bottom. Oh, Helicarrier, avoid. Helicarrier is bad in discard. It's just a bad card. It's so bad. I hope this gets a buff eventually. It just needs to be bigger, or like discard, like be cheaper or something. Like when you get the cards. I don't know. It's so bad. Don't get this card. It's useless, even in the decks where you want it to be good. Is there something beneath avoid? No. No. Avoid is like Agatha Deer. All right. Next we have Luke Cage. I think we'll put Luke Cage in weak or mediocre. How do you guys feel? I don't really play enough Luke Cage to know. It did see some play in like the Hazmat list. What cards do we put in mediocre? Yeah, it's probably Spider-Man level. I think it's better than Hazmat. It's like useful with Valkyrie too. So I'll put him in bottom of mid. But yeah, not much to say. It's like okay card. I would not recommend spending tokens, right? Like I said, you should only spend your free card on easy grabs, deck defining, maybe strong support. Right, if you have the deck defining stuff. All right, next we got Maria Hill. Yeah, I mean, it's deck defining for the Hazmat deck, but I put it in mediocre because of the Sarah Toxic deck. Maria Hill, avoid. It's useless. It's like almost as bad as Helicarrier. Yeah, it feels bad to put it like Drax level, but like it's just like the effect is not good. Like it could maybe be weak with the Quinjet buff, but it got with the Quinjet nerf. I would put it like top of avoid. Like don't get it. It's bad. I'd rather play Quake than Maria Hill. At least Quake is interesting. Yeah, this one has updated values too. I'll definitely update this tier list from here to over here when I'm doing my overall, like when I do the full list eventually. All right, what do you have? Nothing up here is dropped, right? It's all but down here, these ones. All right, next we got Atuma. Atuma, I would say used to be like weak or avoid tier. Low key, Atuma is on the up and up. It's a solid card in the Atuma control deck that Ocean Mud made. It's like one of the best cards in that deck. So I would say, but that deck is very mid. So I would put it in mediocre. Like, yeah. You're gonna wait. There's only one card here. But yeah, I wouldn't get him. But it's probably Luke Cage tier. Alright, we got M'Baku. Definitely weak. You're not actively losing by playing M'Baku. But he jumps out of the deck. It's pretty fun. I don't mind him. He's pretty nice. It's a good card. Like, it's not good, but it's not bad. It's a 1-2. M'Baku's insta-buy. M'Baku is like a meme card, but when it works, it's really good. But when it doesn't work 75% of the time, so that's why it goes in weak. Yeah, Titania. Did I skip Titania? Is Titania higher? Titania. Okay, yeah, let's do Titania. Yeah, M'Baku's good with Lockjaw, yeah. But it's not, like, required there. I'd rather play Kitty Pryde. Alright, how do we feel about Titania, guys? I might put Titania in easy grab. It's either easy grab or strong support, right? It's definitely not deck defining. There's no Titania decks. I'm gonna put Titania in easy grab. This might be a little bit surprising to some, but Titania is one of the best cards in the game. It's the best one drop until Kitty Pryde's re-enabled. And it's nuts with the zero stuff. It's nuts with Clog. It's great with the She-Hulk decks. It's a really good card. I think, yeah. It's the second best with Kitty being out. But even there, like, Titania fits in decks that Kitty doesn't. Yeah, Titania, okay, sure. I'll agree with that. Titania is why zero is strong support. Yeah, I agree. It's very cracked card. It's cracked with Polaris, Green Goblin. Once you learn how to play Titania, which is pretty much just play Titania on the last turn or with the Goblin Polaris stuff, you can put her in any deck. Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. Like, pretty much any deck. Obviously not your Killmonger decks, but... Alright, I think this is our last card, unless I missed any. We got Orca. We recently opened the best Orca skin, Pixel Orca. However, it still goes in a void. Orca is awful. Don't get this card. It's one of the worst 6-drops, probably behind Helicarrier. Or, like, slightly in front of Helicarrier. It's... There's no Orca deck. It doesn't exist. It's bad.